You know that feeling when you wake up one morning and realize you've been living someone else's life. That moment when you look in the mirror and wonder where the real you went. If you're a man over 50, chances are you felt this. And there's a reason why. Today, I want to share 7 lies that most men over 50 have believed their entire lives. These aren't just mistakes, they're systematic deceptions that society sold us about what it means to be a man. And here's the thing, recognizing these lies isn't about blame or regret. It's about freedom. Lie 1. If you work hard and follow the rules, life will work out. This might be the most foundational lie of all. You were told a story: show up on time, do what's expected, stay in your lane, and life will reward you with respect, stability, and happiness. Maybe your father told you this. Maybe your teachers did. Maybe it was just the air you breathed growing up. But somewhere around your 40s or 50s, you started noticing something unsettling. You did everything right. You showed up. You provided. You became the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who could be counted on. And what arrived instead of fulfillment was a quiet disenchantment. Here's what research in organizational psychology tells us: systems are designed to extract value from compliance, not to deliver meaning to the compliant. The corporate structures, the social expectations, the template for successful manhood, they need your predictability to function, but they don't need your happiness. The uncomfortable truth is this: if you want a life that feels real, you have to stop asking for permission to live it. You have to start making decisions based on what matters to you, not what's expected of you. Lie 2. Your identity is defined by your career or provider role. For decades, when someone asked "Who are you?" you probably answered with what you do. I'm an engineer. I'm a manager. I'm the breadwinner. The role of provider became more than a responsibility, it became the entire scaffolding of your sense of self. But here's what happens when that scaffolding gets removed. Retirement arrives. Or you get laid off. Or divorced. Or your kids grow up and stop needing your financial support. Suddenly there's a vacuum. And if you're not essential to someone else's survival, then who the hell are you? Developmental psychologist Erikson called this the crisis of generativity versus stagnation. It's not a bug in the system, it's a feature of this lie. When your worth is entirely tied to your utility, you never have to confront the deeper question of who you actually are beneath all the doing. But here's the invitation: your value isn't based on your productivity. Your worth isn't determined by your paycheck or your title. You are not your job. The man you are at your core, the one with curiosities, perspectives, experiences, and hard-won wisdom, that man exists independent of any role you've played. Lie 3. Marriage is about sacrifice and compromise. The cultural narrative around long-term relationships often emphasizes self-sacrifice for men. Be the provider, keep the peace, don't rock the boat. Put her needs first, don't pursue your passions, swallow your complaints. Compromise until it hurts, then compromise some more. On the surface, this sounds noble. But there's a difference between healthy compromise and disappearing. Over time, what starts as giving becomes something else entirely. You suppress opinions to avoid conflict. You withhold needs to prevent disappointment. You avoid speaking truth to preserve harmony. Here's what relationship research from Dr. Gottman shows us: authenticity isn't optional in intimacy. When you consistently choose peacekeeping over truth-telling, you're not protecting your relationship, you're protecting your relationship from reality. Your partner probably didn't fall in love with a yes man. She fell in love with a person, someone with opinions, desires, boundaries, and a backbone. When you disappear into accommodation, you rob her of the chance to love the real you, and you rob yourself of the chance to be truly known. Lie 4. If you just keep the peace, everything will be fine. Men are often socialized to be emotional managers, particularly in relationships and family dynamics. Your job is to keep things smooth, minimize drama, ensure everyone stays comfortable. But here's the problem: peacekeeping is not peace, it's management. And chronic emotional management eventually turns into resentment. When you consistently prioritize short-term comfort over long-term honesty, you create what psychologists call pseudo-intimacy. Everyone gets along on the surface, but nothing real is happening underneath. You avoid the hard conversations, let things slide, say it's fine when it's not fine. The counterintuitive truth is this: the relationships that survive conflict are often stronger than the ones that avoid it. When you can disagree and still love each other, when you can speak difficult truths and work through them together, that's when real intimacy becomes possible. Lie 5. Success means status and stuff. You've been sold a bill of goods about what constitutes a successful life. The bigger house, the better job title, the nicer car, the retirement account, the respect of peers. These became the scorecards by which you measured your worth as a man. But here's what happens when you reach your 50s, you start to realize that external achievements, no matter how impressive, can't fill an internal void. Even if you've accumulated the status symbols, climbed the ladders, built the life you thought you wanted, there's still something missing. This isn't ingratitude or midlife crisis hysteria. This is your inner wisdom finally getting loud enough to be heard over the cultural noise. Your soul is telling you something important. Acquisition isn't the same as fulfillment. Achievement isn't the same as meaning. Real success isn't about how much you've accumulated. It's about how much alignment exists between what you actually value and how you actually live. It's about waking up and recognizing the person in the mirror. Lie 6. It's too late to change. This might be the most seductive lie men tell themselves after 50. They call it acceptance, but really it's resignation dressed up as wisdom. This is just who I am now. I'm too old to start over. The time for big changes has passed. But here's what this narrative conveniently ignores. By the time you're 50, you have something 20-somethings don't have: experience. You've lived through enough cycles, enough failures, enough successes to actually know what matters. The young man who chose your career path 30 years ago was operating with limited information. He might have been trying to please his parents, impress peers, or meet social expectations. You're not that man anymore. You know things now that he couldn't have known. Change at 50 isn't about starting over. It's about course correcting. It's about taking everything you've learned and applying it more intentionally. You're not too old to become who you were meant to be. You're finally old enough to know who that is. Lie 7. Masculinity is a liability. Somewhere along the way, a quiet shift happened. Masculinity, once associated with strength, stability, and purpose, started being treated like a problem to be solved. The message became, tone it down, don't be too assertive, don't take up too much space. And so a lot of good men started second-guessing themselves. They softened, they deferred, they tried not to be that guy. But here's the thing, we didn't become better men by disconnecting from our masculine core. We just became more uncertain, more hesitant, more invisible. Real masculinity isn't about being a bully or a doormat. It's about being solid, reliable, present. A man who has a spine and a heart. A man who protects without controlling, who leads without dominating, who stands his ground not to overpower others, but because he knows who he is. You don't have to apologize for being a man, and you don't have to prove it to anyone either. You just have to embody it in a way that reflects your values, your experience, and your integrity. So here's what I want you to think about. Which of these lies resonates most deeply with you? What would your life look like if you stopped believing it? And perhaps most importantly, if you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you tell him about the difference between living up to expectations and living authentically? You know, there's something beautiful about reaching this age and realizing that the very thing you thought was the end, the questioning, the restlessness, the sense that something has to change, is actually the beginning. It's the beginning of the part of your life where you get to choose who you are based on who you've become, not who you were told to be. The young man who accepted those lies did the best he could with what he knew. But you know better now. And that knowledge isn't a burden, it's a gift. The gift of a second chance to get it right. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear which lie hit home the most. Drop a comment below and let's start a conversation about what authentic living looks like at this stage of life. And if you're ready to dive deeper into this journey, subscribe for more content about living authentically after 50. Thanks for watching, and remember, your best years aren't behind you. They're just beginning.